If there is one concept to take away from religion or life in general, it is the law of cause and effect, often referred to as karma. Most people apply this principle to some extent without fully understanding it. There's no need to call it karma, acknowledging it as the law of cause and effect suffices. By comprehending this concept deeply, the fear-based ideas of judgment, hell, heaven, and salvation, as described in the Bible and the Quran, begin to lose their hold. Recognizing that our actions alone shape our reality can lead to questioning the foundations of Christianity and Islam, encouraging a path of reason, self-awareness, and personal accountability. A simple way to grasp the law of cause and effect is by examining the negative consequences of alcohol abuse. This is something you might observe in others or experience yourself. The effects, which are cumulative, often become evident within months or years. The universe operates in a way that allows us to learn from the outcomes of our actions. Advice from others, whether rooted in study or personal experience, can guide us, but they are not the ones punishing us. It is the law of cause and effect that delivers the consequences, holding us accountable for our choices. This accountability is woven into the fabric of existence. In religious terms, one might describe it as the will of God. Eastern religions clearly understand and emphasize this principle, teaching that accountability arises naturally from one's actions rather than being enforced by a holy figure in the future. In contrast, Christianity and Islam teach that accountability will occur during a future event known as the Last Days. At this time, a holy figure is expected to physically appear in Israel to gather people for the Day of Judgment, when individuals will be held responsible for disobeying the teachings of the Bible or the Quran. What this implies is that if the holy figure, Jesus, were to come and be killed by the IDF in Israel, there would be no accountability for the actions he demanded from his followers. Islam presents the same borrowed concept, with Jesus replaced by Allah. This is comparable to the authorities in your country declaring, "Don't drink alcohol. If you do, they will return years later to hold you accountable and impose the consequences of drinking on you." However, such enforcement is unnecessary, as the law of cause and effect has already taken care of it. Similarly, the consequences of our actions, whether positive or negative, are already governed by the law of cause and effect, operating continuously and cumulatively. There is no need for an external enforcer like Jesus or Allah. Even a holy figure, if physically present on earth, would be subject to the same immutable law of cause and effect, just as anyone else would face the inherent consequences of their choices. Consider another example. Imagine someone commits 2 years to training for a marathon. The benefits of their consistent physical effort, mental discipline, and psychological growth do not appear overnight but accumulate gradually over time. Each training session contributes to their strength, stamina, and mental resilience. Progress becomes evident as their performance improves, accompanied by a steady and positive mental outlook. This is the law of cause and effect in action, delivering results continuously and reliably. No coach would ever say, "Follow the training plan, and I'll return in 2 years to grant you the benefits of your hard work." Such an idea is absurd because no individual, regardless of their authority, can bestow the results of training. These outcomes are entirely governed by the law of cause and effect, with the benefits arising naturally from the effort itself. The same principle applies to spirituality, where the law of cause and effect remains the ultimate authority. It governs our growth, ensuring that our actions yield corresponding outcomes without the intervention of any external being. There is no need for a figure like Jesus or Allah to physically appear in the future to enforce this law. It functions inherently and continuously, shaping our lives through the causes we set in motion. The universal principle of cause and effect is a cornerstone of accountability and a driving force behind spiritual evolution. Unlike Christianity's concept of judgment by Jesus, a Jewish man, depicted as an external arbiter, karma operates as a self-regulating, intrinsic system. These two paradigms diverge fundamentally in their principles, purposes, and mechanisms. Karma, the law of cause and effect, transcends human constructs, functioning as an impartial and autonomous force that governs the universe. Every action, whether virtuous or harmful, inevitably generates corresponding consequences, shaping the tapestry of individual and collective existence. Unlike an external decree, karma reflects a transcendent cosmic order that unfolds continuously across lifetimes. Requiring no intermediaries, this divine law empowers individuals to discern its workings through introspection and the patterns of their life experiences. It encourages self-awareness, accountability, and growth, emphasizing personal responsibility as the key to spiritual evolution and harmony with the universal order. In contrast, The Christian concept of judgment is a localized, one-time event shaped by the mythological and cultural narratives of first-century Israel. It hinges upon the anticipated physical return of Jesus, contingent on the assumption that he was not killed before fulfilling certain prophesied actions. This judgment is centralized, taking place on an appointed judgment day, when Jesus evaluates the deeds of individuals in Israel to assign eternal rewards or punishments. Unlike the universal and continuous feedback system of karma, this process is mediated by a Jewish holy man believed to wield authority over their fate. Judgment in Christianity is not a recurring principle but a one-time decree attributed to a Jewish prophet, shaped by the cultural and historical narratives of the time, potentially crafted to address the socio-political and religious needs of first-century Israel, rather than representing a timeless, self-regulating law of cause and effect. A key philosophical divergence lies in the concept of accountability. The law of karma emphasizes personal responsibility, where every action directly shapes one's reality in a continuous cycle of cause and effect. In contrast, Christian judgment externalizes accountability to Jesus as the arbiter, a role that introduces dependence on his presence and interpretation. Interestingly, Jesus himself, as a human being, would be subject to the law of karma, which governs all physical beings. Karma is universal, applying to anyone living within the framework of cause and effect, including those considered divine in human form. Even if one assumes that God became a physical human being, the physical form is inherently a created entity, distinct from the uncreated, non-physical nature of God. Consequently, Jesus' actions, teachings, and their ripple effects would fall under karmic principles. This highlights karma's impartial and self-regulating nature. Christian judgment is a dependent system, relying on the return and intervention of a singular Jewish holy man, who was meant to gather and judge the people of Israel in the first century and, as a physical being, would also be subject to the universal laws of karma, like everyone else. Righteousness, or dharma, transcends time, culture, and historical context. It is not something bound to the teachings of a Jewish man from 2,000 years ago or any single religious figure. Instead, true righteousness is a universal principle, directly guided by the divine through one's conscience. We should prioritize listening to our conscience rather than blindly following what Jesus supposedly said in the Bible, especially when it's impossible to verify whether those words have a divine origin. Unlike external doctrines or texts that may be rooted in specific historical or cultural circumstances, Dharma aligns with the eternal and unchanging moral fabric of the universe. It is accessible to all beings, regardless of religion or creed, through self-awareness and sincere introspection. Righteousness, or right action, can be likened to actions that move us toward our spiritual goal, as opposed to those that lead us away from it. For instance, training for a marathon is different from building muscle as a bodybuilder. If someone trains like a bodybuilder while aiming to run a marathon, they will inevitably fail. In spirituality, cultivating right thoughts, emotions, and actions is essential for spiritual growth. When righteousness is sought from within, guided by divine wisdom through the heart and spirit, it nurtures genuine understanding and harmony. External dependence on cultural or historical narratives limits the universal nature of Dharma, reducing its timeless essence to a localized interpretation. You don't need Jesus or Allah to know what is right. Deep within, each of us inherently knows what is right. Countless individuals, such as Jane Goodall, embody moral integrity and serve as powerful examples of compassion and stewardship for the earth. Of all the holy figures, Buddha stands out as a more admirable role model, as he never threatened anyone with eternal damnation, unlike the fiery judgment described in Matthew 13:42. The Christian concept of heaven and hell is a system of reward and punishment administered by a single Jewish man. It resembles the actions of a king returning to Israel to judge his followers, granting rewards or punishments based on their adherence to his commands during his absence with his father and another figure. This approach falsely emphasizes external judgment and accountability to a man. In contrast, the law of karma operates as a natural, self-regulating principle of cause and effect. It highlights the continuous and cumulative consequences of our thoughts, words, and actions, which directly shape our experiences in this life and at death, whether heavenly or a temporary period of pain before returning to redeem negative karma. Unlike systems of judgment or external retribution, karma emphasizes personal responsibility and highlights the profound interconnectedness of all actions within the universe. Governed by divine order, karma operates impartially and universally, ensuring that every individual experiences the precise consequences of their deeds. This principle serves as a reminder of the ethical balance inherent in existence, encouraging mindfulness and compassion in all we do, while demonstrating that the seeds we sow inevitably determine the harvest we reap. These effects are not confined to this lifetime. They accumulate, and upon death, one vividly experiences the full spectrum of their actions, both positive and negative, in what is often referred to as a life review, a process that does not involve Jesus or Allah. This process is governed directly by the divine, free from intermediaries, forming a self-regulating moral system that transcends religious constructs or figures like Jesus. Many Christians who have had near-death experiences report not encountering Jesus, and some even come away rejecting key aspects of Christian doctrine, such as the concepts of judgment, heaven, and hell. Christianity presents a binary afterlife of heaven or hell, determined by Jesus' judgment in Israel. This judgment is not ongoing but is reserved for a specific judgment day upon his anticipated return, an event originally expected to occur in the 1st century. It is essential to differentiate this Christian concept from the universal experience of what happens to the soul and spirit immediately after death, which transcends any single religious framework or prophecy. Interestingly, Jesus, despite his divine claims, was himself bound by the same law of karma, subject to the same moral principles that govern human actions, highlighting the complex intersection of divinity and personal responsibility. Upon his death, assuming his existence, he likely experienced something akin to the near-death experiences described by some individuals. This raises a profound philosophical question. If Jesus himself faced the consequences of his actions, how can he arbitrate the fates of others? The truth is, he cannot. While, as a God-man, he may embody divine authority to some degree, enabling him to influence certain circumstances or intervene in specific cases, this authority does not grant him the power to act arbitrarily. To do so would violate the divine will and disrupt the balance between free will and divine authority. This highlights the crucial need to distinguish between the reality of universal laws and the fictitious concepts presented in the Bible. The law of karma operates inherently and universally, making reliance on any such figure unnecessary. Heaven and hell, in the karmic sense, are not external destinations determined by a Jewish man at a specific point in the future, but rather states of experience shaped by one's accumulated deeds at the time of death. This direct and continuous mechanism, guided by divine justice, supersedes the Christian concept of mediated external judgment in Israel, offering a more equitable and self-determined moral framework. Salvation, if defined as the return of one's spirit to the non-physical, omnipresent God from which we emerged as spirit, is a universal process governed by the divine order, operating impartially and continuously. It transcends the need for intermediaries, including religious figures like Jesus, as it is inherent to the fabric of existence itself. This journey back to the divine is guided by the cumulative results of an individual's evolution, reflecting the law of karma, which ensures that each person reaps what they sow. This process existed long before Jesus and operates universally, irrespective of any specific figure or religion. The idea that salvation depends solely on Jesus contradicts the timeless and impartial nature of divine justice. If salvation were contingent upon one Jewish man, it would exclude the countless souls who lived before or outside of his influence. Instead, the divine order provides every individual with the opportunity to align with truth and righteousness through personal effort, guided by their conscience and intuition. The concept of Jesus saving people from his own punishment is akin to someone threatening to punish others for not meeting their personal demands, only to then offer salvation from that very punishment. Jesus does not define salvation as the journey of the soul and spirit to a non-physical, eternal realm after the death of the body. Rather, he presents salvation as a physical resurrection, which will occur upon his return to Israel, a concept rooted in fiction. His version of salvation centers on rescuing people from the very punishment he is destined to impose, the fiery furnace he was meant to cast them into. This imagery is strikingly similar to the story in the book of Daniel, Daniel 3, where King Nebuchadnezzar commands that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be thrown into a fiery furnace for refusing to worship his golden image. In this sense, Jesus' salvation hinges entirely on his return. If he does not return, there is no salvation. Do you now understand why this salvation event has not occurred in over 2,000 years? The answer is clear: Jesus has not returned. It's apparent that mythical figures, by nature, never appear. Even if such a figure were to appear now, he would be unable to fulfill his promises. In fact, he would likely be killed by the IDF for even considering the idea of sending millions of people from Israel to the burning furnace. This is the harsh reality. Everything else is mere fiction or fantasy. Jesus, as a physical being, was subject to the same divine law. If he himself adhered to these laws, he cannot logically serve as the exclusive gatekeeper to salvation. True salvation is a personal and internal process, facilitated directly by the divine and the natural consequences of one's evolution. It does not depend on external saviors or specific religious contexts. The universal law of karma ensures that everyone, regardless of time, place, or faith, has the opportunity to return to God by aligning with the eternal principles of love, truth, and righteousness. This makes Jesus unnecessary for achieving salvation, as the divine order itself is sufficient. In the last 200 years, humanity has experienced an unprecedented expansion of knowledge, with scientific advancements providing tangible evidence for nearly every phenomenon observed on Earth. From the immutable laws of physics that govern the cosmos to the complex processes of biology, we now possess frameworks to explain and predict much of what transpires in the natural world. Despite this, there is no evidence to suggest that Jesus, or any figure in Christianity, has intervened from heaven to resolve the world's problems. In fact, they have not. What we observe instead are the consequences of the law of karma, a system of cause and effect that governs both individual and collective actions. Karma operates impartially and universally, ensuring that every action carries consequences. This principle is evident in the way political, economic, and social systems unfold over time, shaped by the collective actions of individuals. For example, China's rise as a global power, prospering without the influence of Jesus or Christianity, demonstrates how nations can thrive through their own efforts, guided by their internal values and actions. This underscores that Jesus, a Jewish figure, is not essential for a nation's success or survival. Instead, it is human actions, both positive and negative, that ultimately shape our outcomes. In rare cases, as seen with healers or individuals with miraculous abilities, certain contributions may appear to defy conventional understanding. However, these instances do not require a divine figure like Jesus to explain. They can be understood through the lens of human potential to merge with God and act as God. The law of karma ensures that everything is in balance, and God, through the divine order, is already taking care of everything. Therefore, the need for Jesus as an intermediary becomes unnecessary when we recognize that everything unfolds through the law of karma. The concepts of true judgment, karmic consequence, and true salvation, merging with the absolute, predate Christianity by thousands of years, embedded in ancient spiritual traditions such as those in Egypt and India. These cultures develop systems of moral accountability, divine judgment, and paths to liberation, rooted in the natural law of cause and effect, without any reliance on Jesus or Christian theology. The existence of these ideas across diverse cultures long before Christianity and their continued presence in non-Abrahamic religions suggests that the Christian concepts of judgment and salvation are not universal truths, but rather fictional constructs. The law of non-contradiction states that two opposing claims cannot both be true within the same framework. Applying this logic, the introduction of Christian doctrines does not invalidate the ancient truths of karmic consequence and merging with the absolute. On the contrary, the principle God doesn't change God's nature implies that true judgment, karmic consequence, and true salvation, merging with the absolute, must remain valid and unchanged, regardless of the introduction of Christianity with its fictional concepts of judgment and salvation. The same argument applies to Allah in Islam. The Quran acknowledges that Jesus was a man, which is accurate, but then attributes actions and attributes traditionally associated with Jesus to Allah, such as sitting on the throne, descending to earth, gathering people, repaying, judging, granting eternal life, creating paradise on earth, sending many to hellfire, and performing the miracle of resurrection. This suggests that Allah is portrayed as another man like Jesus, or more simply, that Allah is Jesus, since God does not engage in such actions. Therefore, the same reasoning applies to Allah. Another issue to consider is that if Jesus or Allah were to physically enter Israel, gather the people, judge them, divide them into two groups, condemn one to eternal punishment in a burning furnace, and reward the other, it would draw troubling parallels to the atrocities of the Holocaust. This would violate the free will God granted humanity, to make mistakes, learn, and seek redemption through their own choices. Free will has been the cornerstone of human evolution, enabling us to navigate moral dilemmas, develop consciousness, and ultimately reach a point in history 2,000 years ago that gave rise to Christianity. Given this, how could God, who bestowed this precious gift of free will, now seek its complete abolition? The truth is, God does not seek such an end to free will, as doing so would violate God's inherent nature, an immutable nature that does not change over time. To suggest otherwise is to misunderstand the very essence of divine intention. It is crucial that we distinguish between myth and reality, recognizing the importance of free will in the spiritual and moral development of humanity. Assuming Jesus existed for the sake of this discussion, I can say with absolute certainty that he is not physically alive in the sky. Modern technology, with its advanced capabilities, would have detected such a figure by now, especially considering the gravity of his supposed return to Israel to cast its people into a blazing fire, an act reminiscent of the destructive actions of figures like Hitler. The truth is, he is dead like any other human being. What became of his soul and spirit is another matter, but it is not unique to him. The state he attained can be reached by others through the universal spiritual path, one that transcends any individual figure. Jesus is not coming back, so rather than waiting for a Jewish man, focus on your own spiritual journey and the return to the non-physical, omnipresent God at the death of your physical body.
How you doing? What do you say I buy you a cup of coffee?
Yeah, sure, let's go.
Follow me.
I am never going back.
Then don't take down scores.
I do what I do best. I take scores. You do what you do best, trying to stop guys like me.
So you never wanted a regular type life?
The fuck is that? Barbecues and ball games?
Yeah.
This regular type life, that your life?
My life? No, my life.
Guy told me one time, don't let yourself get attached to anything you are not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you feel the heat around the corner. Now, if you're around me and you gotta move when I move, how do you expect to keep a marriage?
Well, that's an interesting point. What are you, a monk?
I have a woman.
What do you tell her?
I tell her I'm a salesman.
So then if you spot me coming around that corner, you're just gonna walk out on this woman? Not say goodbye?
That's the discipline.
That's pretty vacant. No?
Yeah, it is what it is. It's that or we both better go do something else, pal.
I don't know how to do anything else.
Neither do I.
And now that we've been face to face, if I'm there and I gotta put you away, I won't like it.
There's a flip side to that coin. What if you do got me boxed in, and I gotta put you down? Because no matter what, you will not get in my way. We've been face to face, yeah. But I will not hesitate. Not for a second.
This was never about money for us. It was about us against the system. That system that kills the human spirit. We stand for something. To those dead souls inching along the freeways in their metal coffins, we show them that the human spirit is still alive.